The billionaire stormed into the kitchen and froze. There, in his private home, the new black nanny was feeding his baby something she'd made herself. His rules were crystal clear, so why was she breaking them? He was ready to fire her on the spot, but what happened next would change his life and his daughter's forever. "What do you think you're doing?" The deep, commanding voice thundered from behind, making Mia's hand jerk so hard she almost dropped the tiny spoon. Her heart leapt in her throat. Slowly, she turned, the cheerful smile she'd worn just moments ago melting away, and came face to face with Ethan Blackwell. Ethan, the billionaire real estate mogul whose picture-perfect image was splashed across magazines and business news. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a flawless charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly salary. His jet black hair was perfectly combed, but his piercing eyes burned with something far from composure. And in that moment, Mia realized she had just been caught doing something he would not like. He took one long stride forward, his gaze darting to the small, high chair where his 1-year-old daughter, Olivia, sat happily smacking her lips. Mia still held the spoon, the soft orange puree dripping from its tip. Ethan's jaw tightened. "What?" he repeated slowly. "Do you think you're doing?" Mia blinked, confused by the sheer intensity of his tone. "Feeding her," she said quietly, glancing at Olivia, who gurgled in delight and reached for another bite. But Ethan wasn't looking at Olivia. His eyes were fixed on the little glass bowl in Mia's hand. "That is not the food my chef prepared," he said sharply. Mia swallowed, shifting her weight uncomfortably. "No, it's not. I made it." The silence that followed was heavier than any yelling could have been. Ethan took a breath, as though reining in his temper, and stepped even closer. "I thought I made myself very clear when you were hired," he said, his voice low but cutting. "Olivia's meals are only to be prepared by my chef. Every portion is measured. Every ingredient is approved. And yet, here you are, 2 days into the job, breaking that rule." Mia's fingers tightened around the spoon. "I know what you said," she replied, her voice trembling but firm. "But when I saw the food in the fridge, it was too processed. Too much salt for a baby. I've worked with children my whole life, Mr. Blackwell, and I know fresh, wholesome food is best. This puree is just steamed carrots and a touch of apple. Nothing else." Ethan's expression hardened further. "This is my daughter we're talking about, not some random child you can experiment on. Her nutrition is monitored for a reason. I don't care what you think is best. But you should care," Mia interrupted softly, surprising herself. Ethan blinked, momentarily thrown off. "Because what's best for Olivia," she said, her voice steadier now, "isn't just about what's on a nutrition chart. It's about care, warmth, the love put into the food she eats. You hired me to take care of her, and that's exactly what I'm doing." Olivia giggled then, as if to break the tension, smearing a bit of orange puree across her cheeks. Mia smiled faintly at the baby, but Ethan's gaze lingered on her, conflicted, unreadable. The room was quiet except for Olivia's happy babbling, but beneath the surface, something had shifted. Ethan's polished shoes clicked sharply against the marble floor as he strode closer, his towering presence filling the kitchen. His voice, low but laced with irritation, cut through the air. "I pay thousands a month for the best baby nutrition money can buy," he said, each word precise and firm. "Why are you giving her that?" Mia glanced at the small bowl in her hand, the humble mix of carrots and apple suddenly feeling like a guilty secret. She took a slow breath, willing her hands to stop trembling. But when she spoke, her tone was calm. "Mr. Blackwell, the chef's food is fine," she began carefully, "but Olivia's been rejecting it since yesterday. She spits it out, turns her head. She's not eating enough. She needs something gentler for her stomach, something made with love." Ethan's brow furrowed, his lips curling into a faint scoff. "Love doesn't replace medical standards, Miss Parker," he said sharply, his tone dripping with a mix of skepticism and authority. But Olivia, perched in her high chair, paid no attention to the storm brewing above her. Her cheeks were rosy, her wide brown eyes sparkling. She giggled around the spoon still in her mouth, kicking her legs happily. One tiny hand reached toward Mia for another bite. Without hesitation, Mia obliged, scooping a small spoonful and offering it to her. Olivia took it eagerly, a big smile spreading across her face. She clapped her tiny hands in delight, letting out a squeal that echoed in the room. For the briefest moment, Ethan's stern facade faltered. His eyes softened, catching on the joy radiating from his daughter's face. But just as quickly, he straightened, his jaw tightening again, pride wrapping around him like armor. "Don't mistake her smile for proof you're right," he said, his voice firm. "You're not here to play doctor. I hired you to follow instructions, not make decisions on your own. Next time, you stick to the plan, or you're out." The finality in his tone was like a closing door. Mia simply nodded, her lips pressed into a thin line. But inside, her resolve hardened. She could feel Olivia's tiny fingers brushing against her wrist, trusting her, seeking comfort in her presence. That trust wasn't something she could ignore. She looked up, meeting Ethan's eyes squarely. "Understood," she said, her voice even. But her thoughts were anything but submissive. She would follow his rules for now, at least on the surface. But she knew in her heart that Olivia's well-being came before anyone's pride, even if that pride belonged to a billionaire. As Ethan turned and walked out of the kitchen, the faint scent of his cologne lingering behind, Mia let out a slow exhale. Olivia babbled happily, as if completely unaware of the silent battle unfolding around her. Mia glanced down at the baby and whispered softly, "Don't worry, sweet pea. I'll take care of you, even if I have to prove him wrong to do it." Olivia grinned, her little fists thumping on the tray, and Mia's determination only deepened. That night, the mansion was quiet except for the faint hum of the central heating. Mia knelt on the plush nursery carpet, gathering Olivia's scattered toys into a wicker basket. A soft rattle rolled away, and when she reached for it, she froze. From the hallway, she heard Ethan's voice. It wasn't the sharp, commanding tone she had grown used to. It was low, raw, almost broken. "I can't do this alone, Mom." His words were muffled, but the pain in them was clear. "I don't know what Olivia needs half the time. I'm trying." Mia's chest tightened. She'd never imagined him sounding like this, stripped of his usual confidence, his voice threaded with exhaustion. She had read the news articles when she first took the job. She knew his wife had passed away last year, but hearing the truth in his voice made it real. He wasn't just a billionaire with an army of staff. He was a man who had lost the love of his life, left to navigate fatherhood without her. Every strict rule, every sharp instruction, it wasn't arrogance. It was fear. Fear of making a wrong choice. Fear of losing the only family he had left. Mia sat there for a moment, holding Olivia's stuffed bunny in her hands, her mind turning over what she had just heard. The next morning, she decided to try something different. In the kitchen, the chef had already prepared Olivia's approved breakfast, a perfectly portioned bowl of pureed vegetables, measured down to the gram. Mia thanked him politely and set it aside. Then she quietly took out a smaller bowl and made her own gentle puree, steaming fresh carrots and blending them with sweet apple. When Olivia was seated in her high chair, Mia placed both bowls in front of her. She didn't coax or insist. She just smiled and waited. Olivia's little hands explored both options. She took a few bites of the chef's puree, then a few from Mia's. Back and forth she went, happy and content. Ethan entered just in time to see this small miracle, his daughter eating without fuss, without turning her head away. His brow furrowed. "You mix them?" Mia looked up at him, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. "Yes," she said. "I thought maybe she didn't have to choose between one or the other." Ethan crossed his arms, watching Olivia take another bite, her cheeks puffed with food. "And you think this compromise is the answer?" Mia shrugged lightly. "Sometimes the best solution isn't one or the other, it's both. You want her to have the best nutrition. I want her to feel comfort in her food. This way she gets both." Ethan didn't reply right away. His gaze softened slightly as Olivia let out a happy squeal, reaching for another spoonful. For the first time, Mia thought she saw something in his expression other than disapproval. Maybe, just maybe, it was trust beginning to form. Over the next week, something subtle began to shift inside the Blackwell mansion. The sharp edges in Ethan's voice softened, just a little, and the air between him and Mia no longer crackled with tension. Mia, for her part, didn't push. She simply continued to do her job the way she always had, with care, patience, and quiet confidence. Every morning, she fed Olivia while softly humming African lullabies from her childhood. The gentle, melodic tunes floated through the kitchen, wrapping the room in warmth. What Mia didn't realize was that Ethan often lingered in the hallway on his way to the office, standing just out of sight. He told himself he was only checking that things were running smoothly, but in truth, he was listening. One evening, after a grueling 12-hour day filled with back-to-back business meetings, Ethan trudged into the living room, ready to retreat to his office as usual. But instead, he stopped in the doorway. Mia was on the plush rug with Olivia, both of them surrounded by colorful wooden blocks. Olivia giggled as she stacked them higher and higher until the tower swayed dangerously. Mia gently steadied it, pretending to wipe sweat from her brow like a construction worker. "You're supposed to put the big blocks at the bottom," Ethan said, his voice carrying a rare note of playfulness. Mia glanced up at him with a mischievous smile. "And you're supposed to eat dinner before 10 p.m., but here we are." For a second, he stared at her, caught off guard. Then he laughed. Not a polite, businesslike chuckle, but a real, unguarded laugh, the kind that seemed to surprise even him. Olivia clapped her little hands, delighted by the sound, as if she knew how rare it was. That night, instead of retreating to his office with his laptop, Ethan stayed. He settled onto the rug beside them, letting Olivia hand him blocks that he dutifully stacked according to her instructions. When it was time for dinner, he didn't just watch from a distance. He sat beside Mia, both of them feeding Olivia in turns, sharing small smiles over the baby's happy mess. Over the next few days, their conversations changed. Ethan began asking questions, not about quarterly earnings or real estate deals, but about Olivia. What time should she nap? Do you think she's ready to try finger foods? Which lullaby makes her fall asleep the fastest? It wasn't just about delegating tasks anymore. He was learning, listening, adapting. One afternoon, as Mia rocked Olivia to sleep in the nursery, Ethan appeared in the doorway. He didn't speak right away. He just watched, his expression thoughtful. When Mia finally looked up, he said quietly, "I think she's happier now, and I think I am too." It wasn't a grand confession, but to Mia, it meant more than he could ever know. The billionaire who once saw her as just the nanny was beginning to see her as something else entirely, a partner in raising the most precious person in his life. One quiet Saturday morning, golden sunlight streamed through the tall kitchen windows, casting warm patterns on the marble floor. Ethan padded down the stairs, still in his robe, expecting to find the house empty of movement except for the clinking of dishes from the chef. Instead, he stopped in his tracks. There, in the soft morning light, sat Mia in the oversized armchair by the window. Olivia was curled against her shoulder, fast asleep, her tiny fingers gently clutching the delicate silver necklace around Mia's neck. The baby's breathing was slow and steady, her chubby cheek pressed against the fabric of Mia's sweater. Mia looked up at him and whispered, "She wouldn't sleep last night, so I stayed with her." Ethan's eyes flickered to the clock. It was nearly 8 a.m. He realized Mia must have been awake for hours, rocking, comforting, and caring for his daughter while he had been upstairs, unaware. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. This woman, the one he had nearly fired on her second day, had not only tended to Olivia's needs, but had also filled the house with something it had been missing for far too long: warmth. He took a slow step closer, lowering his voice. "Mia," he paused, his pride warring with his gratitude. "I owe you an apology. You've done more for Olivia than I've been able to in months." And his voice faltered slightly. "You've done more for me than I realized." Mia's lips curved into a gentle smile. "Sometimes, Mr. Blackwell," she said softly, "what a child needs most isn't perfection, it's connection." Ethan's gaze shifted from Mia to Olivia, her tiny hand still gripping the necklace, as if she never wanted to let go. He thought about the countless times he had tried to control every detail of his daughter's life, believing it was the safest path. But here was Mia, who didn't have a billionaire's resources, yet somehow understood what truly mattered. The room was quiet except for the faint ticking of the grandfather clock. But in that silence, something shifted between them, an unspoken acknowledgement that they were no longer just employer and employee. From that day forward, Mia wasn't just the nanny. She became part of the family. Mornings were no longer rushed exchanges between schedules and routines. Sometimes Ethan would join them for breakfast, listening to Mia hum softly while Olivia banged her spoon on the high-chair tray. Evenings turned into family time, reading picture books on the couch, or letting Olivia stack blocks until they toppled in a fit of giggles. Ethan still ran his empire, still wore the perfect suits, still made million-dollar deals, but he no longer tried to parent from a distance. He was present, and every time he saw Olivia run into Mia's arms with pure joy, he was reminded of the lesson he had almost missed. Being a billionaire didn't mean you had all the answers. Sometimes, the most important ones came from the most unexpected people. In the end, it wasn't the chef's meals or the billionaire's money that brought little Olivia comfort. It was the gentle hands, the warm heart, and the sleepless nights of a woman who refused to give up on her. Sometimes, the richest thing you can give a child is love.